Human history is filled with conflict. From the earliest days of civilization, humans have fought over resources, territory, and power. These battles have shaped the course of history, leaving behind ruins and legends. From ancient times to the present, we seem hardwired for war. The reasons for conflict have evolved, but the essence remains the same. Whether it was the clash of empires in ancient times or the world wars of the 20th century, the drive to dominate and defend has been a constant. But something has changed. The nature of war itself is evolving. Traditional battlefields are giving way to new arenas of conflict. Technology has transformed how wars are fought, with drones, cyber attacks, and information warfare becoming the new tools of combat. Are we entering a new era of conflict, one less defined by traditional battlefields? In this digital age, wars are no longer confined to physical spaces. The internet and cyberspace have become the new frontiers where battles are fought with data and algorithms. The world today is interconnected, economies are intertwined, information travels at the speed of light. This interconnectedness has created a global village, where events in one part of the world can have immediate repercussions elsewhere. This interconnectedness has brought us closer than ever before. People from different cultures and backgrounds can communicate and collaborate in ways that were unimaginable just a few decades ago. This has fostered understanding and cooperation, but it has also created new challenges. But it has also created new vulnerabilities, new battlefields. Cybersecurity has become a critical concern as hackers and state-sponsored actors exploit these connections to launch attacks. The lines between war and peace are blurring, as conflicts can now be waged without a single shot being fired. Have the wars really ended, or have they simply become more sophisticated, more insidious, more difficult to even recognize? The tools and tactics may have changed, but the underlying dynamics of power and control remain. The answer, it seems, is far more complex than a simple yes or no. As we navigate this new era, we must remain vigilant and adaptable, understanding that the nature of conflict is constantly evolving. The future of warfare may be uncertain, but one thing is clear: the quest for power and dominance will continue to shape our world. For centuries, war was a brutal, straightforward affair. Armies clashed on battlefields, often in hand-to-hand combat, with swords, spears, and later muskets and rifles. The strategies were simple, the objectives clear. The victors claimed territory, resources, and power. They would raise their flags over conquered lands, celebrating their triumphs with parades and ceremonies. The spoils of war were tangible and immediate. The scars of war were visible, the toll on human life undeniable. Fields turned to graveyards, cities to ruins. The injured were tended to in makeshift hospitals, and the dead were mourned by their families. The cost of victory was steep, and the price of defeat even steeper. But the 20th century brought a terrifying new era of warfare. The advent of mechanized combat with tanks, airplanes, and artillery changed the face of battle. No longer were wars fought solely by soldiers on foot. Now entire nations mobilized for total war. World wars engulfed the globe, fueled by industrial might and driven by ideologies. The scale of conflict was unprecedented, with battles raging across continents and oceans. The world watched in horror as cities were bombed and millions of lives were lost. The atomic bomb, a terrifying glimpse into the destructive power of science, cast a long shadow over the future. The mushroom cloud over Hiroshima and Nagasaki was a stark reminder of humanity's capacity for destruction. The world had entered a new perilous era. In the aftermath of such devastation, a new idea began to take hold. The idea that war, at least in its traditional form, was becoming obsolete. Nations began to focus on reconstruction, on building a lasting peace. Soldiers returned home, and the world hoped for a future without the horrors of global conflict. Yet as technology advanced, so did the methods of warfare. Drones, cyber attacks, and other modern technologies have transformed the battlefield once again. The face of war continues to change, evolving with each new innovation. The question remains, can humanity find a way to resolve conflicts without resorting to violence? The latter half of the 20th century saw the rise of globalization. Economies became intertwined. International organizations like the United Nations promoted diplomacy and cooperation. The decreasing violence hypothesis emerged, suggesting that humanity was experiencing a decline in violence and war. The rates of violent death, once alarmingly high, did indeed begin to fall. But this apparent peace masked a deeper truth. While traditional warfare between nation-states may have declined, conflict itself did not disappear. It simply adapted, evolving into new, more insidious forms. The very technologies that brought us closer together, that promised to usher in a new era of peace and prosperity, also created new vulnerabilities, new battlefields. Cyber warfare, once the stuff of science fiction, became a stark reality. Nation-states and non-state actors alike could now wage war from afar, disrupting critical infrastructure, stealing secrets, and sowing discord with the stroke of a key. The battleground had shifted from the physical to the digital, the front lines now invisible to the naked eye. Section 5. The rise of silent warfare. Economic warfare became another potent weapon in the globalized world. Sanctions, trade wars, and the manipulation of financial markets could cripple economies and topple governments without a single shot being fired. Information itself became weaponized. Propaganda, disinformation, and fake news spread like wildfire on the internet, eroding trust, inflaming tensions, and manipulating public opinion. These new forms of conflict were often subtle, their effects diffuse and difficult to quantify, but their impact was no less real, no less devastating. Section 6. The future of conflict. As we look to the future, the nature of war seems poised to become even more complex, more unpredictable. Artificial intelligence, autonomous weapons systems, and the weaponization of space all present new challenges, new dangers. Climate change, too, threatens to become a major driver of conflict. As resources become scarcer and competition for land and water intensifies, the potential for violence increases. The wars of the future may be fought not for territory or ideology, but for survival itself. Section 7. The fragility of peace. The relative peace we have enjoyed in recent decades is not a given. It is a fragile thing, easily shattered by the forces of nationalism, greed, and fear. The interconnectedness that defines our world means that conflict in one region can quickly spread to others, drawing in even reluctant participants. The old rules of warfare no longer apply, and the lines between peace and conflict have become blurred. Section 8. Striving for harmony. Despite the challenges we face, there is reason for hope. Humanity has shown a remarkable capacity for cooperation and problem-solving, especially when faced with existential threats. International diplomacy, arms control treaties, and the pursuit of sustainable development all offer paths towards a more peaceful future. Education, too, plays a vital role. By fostering understanding, empathy, and respect for others, we can help to break down the barriers that divide us. Section 9. An uncertain future. The question of whether the wars are truly over remains open. Despite the end of many large-scale conflicts, smaller skirmishes and regional disputes continue to erupt around the globe. The scars of past wars still linger, and the threat of new conflicts looms on the horizon. While traditional warfare may be on the decline, conflict itself is likely to remain a constant in human affairs. The nature of conflict is evolving, with cyber warfare, economic battles, and ideological clashes becoming more prevalent. These new forms of conflict are just as disruptive and dangerous as traditional warfare, if not more so. The challenge we face is not to eliminate conflict entirely, but to manage it in a way that minimizes suffering and preserves the hard-won peace we have achieved. Diplomatic efforts, peacekeeping missions, and international cooperation are more crucial than ever. We must strive to build bridges, foster understanding, and create mechanisms for resolving disputes peacefully. The future of warfare is uncertain, but one thing is clear. Our ability to navigate this complex and ever-changing landscape will determine the fate of humanity itself. As technology advances, the tools of war become more sophisticated and potentially more devastating. Artificial intelligence, autonomous drones, and cyber weapons are just a few examples of the new challenges we face. It is imperative that we develop ethical guidelines and international regulations to govern the use of these technologies, ensuring they are used responsibly and do not lead to unintended consequences.